Thanks, everyone. I'll talk about how we actually make some money out of this thing we're calling placemaking and how we do that with a manageable risk level. Just an opening thought really to exercise is, what is property? Where does the commodity come in? Where does the place start? Where do those intangibles that make things special come into play? A few points there. We're really getting out of commodity property. We've been a big seller through the GFC, looking to get away from anything that's commoditised. And one of the things that we've focused in on is actually a sense of place for our customers. Places can be quite difficult, and there's a short list of risks there that we all know about and we've all experienced. Sometimes they can kill good projects which will get place to the forefront. We think that there's a way that can work in a financial model. The example I'm going to use is a quite large project, and it's up in Brisbane. It's in a very critical place to the Brisbane CBD, and it's right at the entrance of the mall, the Queen Street Mall, which is a hugely dynamic, active and vibrant place. And I just wanted to take you through the layers and really get down into some of the texture. That's what you might see as a pretty traditional 70s, 80s layer one. Lots of commerce fighting place. This is our inglorious asset, as it was before we started this project. And you can see there the response is quite poor to place. It's not really interacting at all with the street. And when you get into it, a lot of design solutions which are really quite poor. What we're trying to do then is look at a horizon for our investment, which can re-establish some of those key value creators that are associated with place, and get back into a conversation with all of our customers, and that is the general public. It's a shopping centre. It is hotel guests, because we have a hotel. It is office tenants, because we're planning an office tower. It's the general community that want to eat, play, work, meet, importantly, in a place which is already important to them. What we're trying to do is, that key statement of we want to get the commodity out of our properties and get the place and the value back in. One of the biggest things that we've found gets in the way of financing these things is, in theory, everyone wants them, just not next door, just not at inconvenience to myself or my interests. And that's been a big issue with this particular project. Now, our reference points I'm going to take them through quite quickly, because there's an animation I'd like to put in at the end which does draw all this together. But we started a long time ago. That's a reference point for what the heart of Brisbane used to be: theatres, light, activity. That was still preserved for quite a few decades. A lot of attention to detail in the built fabric. These were important places very close to the heart of Brisbane, the Brisbane community, and still are reminisced about. However, they don't exist. In particular, we've purchased a site which was demolished in the 70s, which was the Regent Showcase Theatre. The remnants of that are a reference point for us, but unfortunately that's all that's left of that place. Through the 70s, 80s, we were left with this type of result. What we're trying to do is bring back light, theatre, engagement and craftsmanship, which often goes with placemaking. This place that we're in today, great craftsmanship. Then bring that back down to meet commerce. And unfortunately, we need to make commerce to afford the place. We have to be able to integrate that commerce at the ground level, unfortunately, where we can't afford to sacrifice the value for place. We need to then graft the place in, grow it and nurture it. It really gets us onto this competition for returns that finance is all about. We're a slightly different model. We're supported by a range of industry super funds who have a very long investment horizon. It's not simply 2 or 3 year project finance after which we have to get our money out, otherwise we're dead. This is 20, 30 year investment horizons. And I do think if you look at the best examples of place, It's a very long investment horizon that needs to come to the fore very, very quickly. We started that process with a huge search for ideas. We wanted people to come to this asset 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and use it across the whole spectrum that a good place should be able to provide. Importantly for us, we wanted to create a global asset without the risk of going offshore. One definer that we picked up on early was a lot of talk about mixed use, highest and best use, very clinical terms. What we wanted was a best quality use. We thought there was value around the Queen Street Mall from that point of view. So to locate you, the city, really a simple setup. Our site is absolutely in the centre, right on the mall. There was infrastructure around us, and that was really important for us. We weren't doing this by ourselves, and we wanted to take the strength of that infrastructure and enhance it. Our legacy was an old but successful hotel and a very old but still successful shopping centre. What we wanted to do was get that flagship commerce in there. We needed more commerce above it. That was simply the relationship between what can we afford, and we needed more density, and the council were willing to work with us on that for a major office tower. A big focal point, give it a heart. Work in another commerce, which is a huge competition for this asset because we have ramps out in the street in Elizabeth Street, and then we have heritage to consider. There's our heart cut through 9 stories at huge cost. We're trying to create value through that relationship of light, a sense of space. It's more than a food court. It's something where people will arrange to meet and enjoy. That has to then carry through and be rigorously applied to everything you do. The equity I've talked about has to be patient, but it also needs an immediate return, and that's the balancing act that place often gets caught up in. Can the returns be brought forward sufficiently to get everyone to push the button? Can the returns build over time to make the extra effort and expenditure really worth the effort? A few things that we've tried to avoid: traditional design and construct won't get you place. Cost effective will get you place, but not low cost. Place has to pay its way, but it also requires a commitment to quality. We're trying to get experience for the user, which adds value. It's that X factor. Where's that come to for us? There's $50 million just of a grab bag of things that we've had to endure from a decision to shut the centre and forego that revenue, a decision to fight for the quality of the job both through the planning process and the courts, a commitment to architecture and design early in the job where the idea was preserved, and that's been a very important issue for us with Studio 505, Buckins and John Wardour and Associates. What have we ended up with? You'll see an animation of this, but this is a full-scale segment of our facade. It's basically a low-resolution art installation, fully programmable, just like the screen, made of LEDs. There's $1 million worth of LEDs, 3,000 square metres of active facade on the outside of the building. We've linked heritage to office. It's an internal street that we're giving back to the city. Mandated, but done in such a way where it goes well beyond what we're trying to do. And I'm deliberately away from the hero shots of office buildings. There are plenty of those around. This is the human spaces that people are going to occupy and, we hope, come to love. It goes down to the level of detail of putting flourishes where people can observe, people can interact at different levels, with different viewpoints, with different experiences. We've also grafted on the historical community love for this precinct, which was around theatres, around nightlife, around arts and entertainment and culture. It's boutique, but it's high quality. It's natural light, We'll have Brisbane International Film Festival and Screen Queensland, as well as a whole range of commercial activities which complement the office and the hotel. All of the public spaces and all of the placemaking has had to come back to a way of intensifying use to lift commercial output to afford it, and it's as simple as that. As a developer, we need to be able to pay for this in investment returns. When we're touching the ground though, we want both intimate and monumental spaces working together to create a range of experiences. We need to give back to the streetscape, and if you've ever driven up the 4-lane freeway that goes through Brisbane, which is Elizabeth Street, you'll know it's not a pretty sight. A lot of the developers around there are putting a lot of money back into recreating Elizabeth Street, perhaps not as it was, but at least to be a high quality environment. At the bottom of the financial pressures of a job though is a few simple home truths which we've all experienced. We need to have a place occupied, and it needs to be occupied frequently, and it needs to be occupied, unfortunately, by paying customers as well as those who are just enjoying the space for free. We need to get productivity of the best parts of the place as high as possible to allow for the additional infrastructure spend. We need to translate both of those into a greater capacity for users to pay. Now, whether that's a tenant, a paying guest, or an office occupant, or someone just grabbing a meal with some friends. We think the payoff, though, is better cap rates, higher longer-term returns, sufficient short-term returns, and less market obsolescence. And that's a really critical factor. If you invest in a place, it can't become yesterday's news. As a financial prospect, it has to have longevity. Our investors have been very, very patient with the project, and you'll just see here up on the screen a couple of our intentions, and this is absolutely live. This has never been displayed before. It's actually in development. This is the facade to the Queen Street Mall, fully programmable, addressable, and our intention is to have this curated as if it was a live public art display. It'll give us recognition, it'll give us identity, and importantly, it'll allow us to communicate with everyone that we want to be customers and to be present in the place.